Well, good morning. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Heavyweights. I have not been doing the intro consistently every time. So if I have time, I will do it. If not, and you're listening for the first time, welcome. Thank you for listening. I'm Ashton Hines, and this is my partner, Tavis Westbrook, and we are the Real Estate Heavyweights. We're in Dallas, Fort Worth. We talk about real estate, the market in DFW. We talk about our experience in the profession. I'm newer to the game. Tavis has been in a long time, and we talk about what's going on in our businesses, and I try to learn a little bit about investing and about being an agent. I've been an agent. I've been an agent now 4 years.
I was going to say you're getting seasoned.
I can't really necessarily say a newbie. So yeah, I'm one class short of getting my broker's license. So
2021 or 2020?
I guess that would be 2020. I would have to look at the actual date. But okay. Yeah, so I just recently randomly looked at the requirements.
You're a COVID baby. You're a COVID real estate boomer.
I've done enough transactions, and I've been in the game long enough to if I wanted to take my broker's test, I could, which was kind of cool. So several things I read from last year, like between 50 and 75% of agents didn't do one deal, which I know there's a lot of kind of dormant agents, which I know that sort of takes into account, but close to 75% of agents didn't do one.
Getting your broker's license is a good thing. It gives you flexibility if you need it for anything in the future, but it does add a little bit of hours to your continuing education. Every 2 years you've got to do a extra 6-hour broker responsibility course. But all good. I've had my broker's license since 2006.
Yeah, you've had a long time.
And had it independent originally, and then I ended up merging into KW in 2009. So, essentially only operated independent for a couple of years. But so you could definitely have it and still operate under a bigger umbrella if you want.
Yeah, and I've always, for whatever reason, when I do a deal with someone or I communicate with somebody and they're a broker, I just always feel like it does have a little bit of, they know what they're talking about. They've been in the game long enough. They know what they're talking about. So I don't know. I've just always had that. That's sort of an immediate way of knowing. Okay,
it should, or you're dealing with somebody that got the broker's license in the 80s or the 90s.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Well, or they're new
and they're not very fresh,
Yeah. But right.
That's not always the case. So
yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of working towards that, but yeah, in the realm of our life, you've been in a long time. I have not been in it quite as long. I do want to do this where we count up how many flips you've done, because we've always said over 200, but
oh gosh,
we've done the podcast now for over a year, and I know last year you did 10, and you're working on a few, and so
I was on track with 10. I don't know. Well, one of them I kept as a rental. Still qualifies as a deal, I guess. But and then I rolled into the new year with one. That would close. I might be shy of
10.
I've got one in escrow that it was supposed to close last year, and I'm still waiting on it to close. So
yeah, it's title issues, right?
It's a title. It's so when this person that owned the home is not what do they call it, of sound mind, they have to get what's called a guardianship in order to sign it over.
Oh, okay.
And so they're in the process of doing that. I guess if not, it has to be a specific power of I don't know. There's some regulations there, but essentially what happened is they had a power of attorney, and they did some research, I guess, that tells you how thorough the title plan is. They did some research, and they ran this person's name, and they found that she had been picked up by the police a couple times because she was wandering and didn't know where she was, and they had to find family.
It's happened to all of us.
Yeah. You're a wanderer. So anyways, that happened, and here we are. and I think we're at the home stretch now finally. But we just had to do. It was supposed to close today, actually, again, and we just pushed it out again to the end of the month. The bad thing is, and this is something that you learn when you do a lot of these. So I do something called a builder's risk policy. It's an insurance policy that covers me um, under builder's risk, and it's a short-term policy, typically a 6-month plan that I get on these fix and flip properties. Covers covers the renovation. I typically give them my detailed budget, tell them what I'm doing to the house, and so it's a specific policy with this type of situation versus just a homeowner's policy that would not cover a lot of these renovations. If something were to happen or the house gets stolen, or stolen, the materials and things like that. So, anyways, long story short, I was supposed to close this property before the end of the year. Two of them, the one in Carrollton and Garland, was supposed to close like right before Christmas. So I was kind of in a rush, got back from, our trip and everything else. And I was like, oh, okay, go ahead and get them both going. This one's supposed to be good. So anyways, I have an insurance policy on that house and I don't own it yet. So, I hit up my agent the other day and I was like, paying for this insurance policy. We're about a month in now.
Yeah.
And I never closed on the property. He's like, well, it's a 6-month property. I mean, if you're going to close it, just let it go. You're just burning time. So I think it'll be fine. But
yeah.
anyways,
Well, we need to add up all that being said, I know you have your spreadsheets. It wouldn't be terribly difficult to go through and
I have a
accurate number.
lot. So from 2012 to today, I have everything that I was ever a principal in.
Mm-hmm.
There was technically a tremendous amount of properties before that. Actually, the people that connected us, Lawrence and those guys from California,
mm-hmm.
Actually not as much Lawrence, but Reggie and those guys, they had I forget the name of their company now.
Yeah, but I don't know the name of their company.
I facilitated a lot of transactions for them. So basically I would find it, I would GC it, renovate it, and then I would sell it. And I would charge them a GC fee and I would charge them commission based on a sliding scale. If they made more than 10%, then I would charge them 6%. If it was less than 10%, then I would,
I would also count those. I would not, if you're finding
the property. I do count those in my, count those in my 200 number, but it would be, I'd have to go and
like actually dig,
find those because I don't have a paper trail of that. But I mean, I do somewhere if I can go back in, but
yeah,
that was a long time ago. So and also I did a bunch of stuff with George Roddy. So George Roddy and I, and let's see, 2009, maybe 2010. So starting in 2009, bleeding into 2010, I think he and I did like 26 properties together that year.
Wow.
So there's been kind of an array, like I said, through that, and then in 2012 started really tracking them. So
yeah, well,
here we go.
We'll sit down one day and do that. But
yeah,
it's been fun the last little bit. We've been actually hanging out more often because I'm helping out with the demo, and we've been walking a lot of properties together. We basically finished up demo over in the Carrollton house. I still need to do a little bit of work on the floor to get it ready, but flooring won't come in for a little while. So we got some time, but we really peeled the onion way back, got tons of sheetrock off the walls. They were able to come in and sort of rerun the electrical lines to where they're not hanging down. And the HVAC guys came in, and the plumbing was done under the house. It was crazy because all those crews were there basically at the same. Some days they were all there at the same time, and I was there helping clean. And it was just nice to kind of see the whole process working just up that close.
I was going to say so. Both your projects, I came into Polk pretty late in the game.
Yeah.
That you were working on. But I mean, knowing what you did at Polk after the fact, it was a heavy project.
Yeah.
That was a heavy tier 2, inside the walls. You added a bathroom, moved a bunch of stuff around.
Out in the kitchen, put a beam in.
Yeah. So I caught that tail end of it. You had already done a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then Mapleton, I was in on the front end. Added a bathroom there as well. So, I mean, kudos to you because you took on some really big jobs to start.
It's like a dumb
And
idiot walking into a room, not really knowing what's
yeah,
going on, just like
but I
start
think that
swinging a hammer.
from what I see, because you weren't as involved because you were full-time therapy at the time. Are you learning more now? Are you
Oh
are you
yeah,
seeing more pieces of the puzzle, I guess, and putting together timelines and
yeah. I
you
mean,
know and
I would have to think back. I definitely towards the end at Polk. I mean, towards the end at Polk and some over at Mapleton. Those were the times where like, look, you've got to be there more. I remember Dustin down in Austin,
yeah.
brother-in-law. He said, dude, you just have to. You just need to show up more often.
Hmm.
And I started going, but looking back, it's just so frustrating because my conversations with my general contractor and the other guy, even your guys, were more like, hey, can you be here in 2 weeks or a
Mm.
week? Or, well, I can't do that. Maybe 2 weeks from then. I mean, we were talking about let's get them here in a week or two or whatever. And then, okay, they'll go there, they'll measure. Okay, I'll put you on the schedule. I'll be back in a week or two. And then maybe they don't show up. So it just dragged out to this months and months of things. And I wasn't going as often. And I didn't really know what I was looking at. You
Hmm.
know, now I would feel pretty confident walking a house, let's say with Johnny, the electrician, and saying, hey, we need can lights here. Let's do this here. And then I could go back after and say, hey, you forgot, like, for instance, yesterday, I was doing a little bit more demo in the kitchen. Johnny and his guys forgot to change out the outlets in the kitchen on one of the backsplash.
Well, they won't do that until then.
Okay. So, I mean, but you're just kind of noticing these
Yeah.
little things of like, hey, they did all these other deals. Okay, I'm going to put that on a list. Like, hey, I noticed you didn't do this. I probably wouldn't even picked up on half of that stuff. I mean, the
Yeah.
other thing that we talked about was doing a complete demo early on so you could peel it back all the way is what you need. And then let's now everyone that goes out is looking with the big picture because, like, for instance, the other day,
I did notice you like remove the doorknobs. Like that was probably one of your first things you did.
oh, if
Just
I did
your
that,
your nightmares you've had with doorknobs on your jobs.
oh yeah. And I don't even know that I did that early on. I had a guy do that, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Um, yeah, but a good example is I had sort of delayed over at the Carrollton house. I had delayed demoing this little part of the floor in the living room. It's no big deal. But whenever I went over to do it, I realized like, wait, this sheetrock's pretty soft. And so then we're like, okay, cut it back. And outside of the fact that I could use some, you know, I need to do better about my X-Acto knife skills and cutting back sheetrock. But I did pull it back and we found like, okay, yeah, there's a little bit of damage to this stud. Okay, does this mean there's a drainage issue? Like it sort of opened up these other questions like, hey, is this a flashing issue on the chimney? Is this a drainage issue? Is this like what's going on here? And at let's say at Polk or Mapleton, I may not have found that out for a month or two or three. And maybe after all those guys had been there once or twice, and then I have to call them back out and say like, so to me, the big lesson is do a very thorough, complete demo to where you know exactly what you're working with. And that way, when guys go out, they can do everything they can do in the moment. And then they know there's no surprise around the
Yeah.
corner. There's just so much value in that. And I mean, it sounds simple, but, you know, having gone through it and
One
being
of
able
the
to do it in a week, it's like,
one
look,
of
it
the
doesn't take a lot of time necessarily.
one of the things that gets missed a lot, and it drives me nuts. Like a ceiling fan, for instance, and like in your case, you didn't have a ladder with you. You ended up getting it down, but and that ceiling fan was a little newer style, so it wasn't a big deal. But you think back to these '80s, 70s and '80s ceiling fans, and the base on them were like
Mm-hmm.
12 inches in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you're dealing with a house that, well, let's say that the ceilings are scraped or they're not scraped. Um,
Oh, right. Yeah.
but those light fixtures get left up there with that
Yeah. And
big
then you have
12-inch
this little
ring,
like
and then you
4-inch
get
ring of,
all the way to a point.
yeah.
You've already done sheetrock, you've done texture, you've done paint. Everybody's left that fixture up there. And maybe the painter at some point decides to drop it down low. But then there's this texture spot.
Yeah.
So then
Right.
he paints everything. So now on your punch, you're coming back and you're scraping that area and you're
Mm-hmm.
patching it and you're painting it again
Yeah.
versus it just being done.
Yeah.
It just makes it easier if you know you're going to change it, just get rid of all the stuff up front. And,
Yeah.
uh,
Yep.
working around the blinds and working around those patches of the old screw holes for the
Mm-hmm.
blinds and, just things like that. It's just one of those things that, punch lists are a pain in the butt. I mean, you've been through a couple of them, I've been through a lot of them, and I just really try to minimize. And then there's certain things that I know you have thicker skin and you just like at Shady Hill. I think there's things you pointed out. There's things that I've seen, and I'm like, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
punch. Right.
Right.
And what that is you're trying to narrow down that day to be a 1 or 2 day punch list for the sheetrock guys to come in, and then after that 1 or 2 days for the painter to come in.
Yeah.
So you're trying to like narrow that list down rather than them make 5 trips back and forth.
Yeah.
Try to wait until that point in time, and then you go in there and do a really good job blue taping to point everything out. And they're much happier because then they're like, okay, because they all at least all my trades for coming back on the final. It's just part of the equation. It's part of the cost. It's part of the deal. Years ago, I used to fight with painters and people like that because they were like, we're done and we're going to charge you to come back. I'm like, no, it's not the way it works in this. But that's also understanding the differences between trades that do like homeowner remodel stuff, that do a onesie twosie remodel for somebody off of Craigslist or whatever, and they do their job and they're done and they're out of it, versus working for like a professional GC or somebody that does a lot of these jobs. There's gonna be things that get dragged out and punch list stuff, because
well, and that's kind of like my area of learning on this one is I will point out, so like the good example is the outlets in the kitchen, or the paint scuffs on the fireplace over at Shady Hill. It's like, hey, are they going to look at this? You're like, they'll figure it out on the punch day. And knowing like, okay, this needs to be handled now, or like, oh shoot, that'll actually be handled on punch. Like for instance, there's still a sheetrock gap above the fireplace at Shady Hill. And it's like, well, no, Adrian will do that on. So to me, it's like, okay, do I need to have him come back out? There's those little things. But that being said, is like, I'm feeling more and more confident. If I ran a project now, I could get in and out way, way faster. I mean, at least half the time, if not a third of the time that I did my other projects, just kind of knowing how. Plus you have the right guys, and they have expectations. They're professional. They come in, they know what they're doing. They measure, they come back, they everyone just kind of does their deal. And
and I think this one's been a good one too, because this is like, this rehab could have been a little lighter, and I've made a couple decisions to make it a little bit more complex, and then in doing so, and it's not your fault, of course, I give you a hard time, but
they're cheap cabinets. They're cheap.
Where the cabinets are starting to fall apart in several areas.
They're particle board.
And
I'm like a bull in a china closet.
They weren't put
6'3",
together.
300 pounds at this point. A sledgehammer. I've got 8 people working around me. I'm doing my best, and I was a little rough with the cabinets, but I did prop them up yesterday to where hopefully it got to a point where they can't be.
The bad thing is I keep sending pictures over to my trim guy, my cabinet guy, and he's like, "What are you doing? Just tear them out. Just new boxes, new cabinets everywhere." Which the ironic thing is, now I'm seeing dollar signs go out the window now. But 3-4 weeks ago, if he would have got started then and we got a number and we got it situated, I was willing to do new cabinets then. But one of the things that happens in construction and things like that is I did not anticipate removing that drop ceiling and having the original electricians cheat everything and run it through that drop ceiling when you've got a whole attic up there that was easy to move around in, and you very easily could have ran the electrical correctly instead of run that through the
you ran into a pretty significant electrical upgrade, and then sheetrock ended up being like, instead of patchwork, it was more like, hey, we have to take down all this sheetrock, make it easy, make it right, to do it right.
I mean, the sheetrock was there. The problem was it was never tape embedded originally, so it actually looks worse than what it is. Like, it's just sheetrock work. But because we take the sheetrock down, now we have to spray in new insulation. So now new insulation in the attic is $1,700. So
Mm.
those things add up. So when people try to ask me questions like, what do you think this cost to do this? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because it's a trickle effect,
Yeah.
And then the other part to it is, like, for instance, the insulation guys, I may or may not have involved them, right? But knowing that we're missing insulation in a good portion of the house now because we took the sheetrock down,
Mm-hmm.
we have to do it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I've already got electricians there doing some work. I've already got, painters
Right.
doing work. I've already got sheetrockers doing work. So it just adds to their scope of things that they're already doing in the total house.
When I saw someone out there measuring that back patio yesterday,
It was the roofer. Yeah, they're actually scheduled to do the roof today. So
okay.
they're changing out the roof. And one of the things I was asking him is that polycarbonate roof overhang had a bunch of holes in it and it was dirty, and so I was trying to get a price on
how to fix that,
replacing that covered section.
Well, there's your flip talk. That's what everyone comes for here, So
yeah, 21 minutes of
at some point we'll
flip talk for you.
But people like the flipping university stuff, and when I was actually flipping a house, we had some talk. So I'm glad I'm over there, and we actually have projects to talk about. But that being said, why don't we get to a market update? And as we did last week, the new amazing feature.
I love it. It's so cool.
Let's pull up our Netris. So here is our Netris screen. 10-year, we look at the 10-year look back right here, and this is our monthly look. And so our average sale price right now in the entire MLS is $482,000. Collin County, $560. Dallas County, $588. That being said, this isn't all property types: townhome, condo, farm, ranch. We could narrow it down a little bit more, but I've always just used the big numbers here, and we could get more specific there. But
I think it's fair. No,
yeah, I mean, that's what everyone's going to be going off of. It's just kind of a generic number. But average day on market right now, 67. Collin County, 63. Dallas, 54. So it is, we have a very sharp upward trajectory of days on market right here. And if we look back, I mean, on average, if we look back, I mean, let's say average is 67. It takes us a while to get back over 2020. We had, the average was 64, and let's see here. How is this possible? Collin County was 76. I was about to say the overall MLS was 62 back then. Collin County was struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what? I wonder if 2020.
I remember 2019 had some weird stuff going on. Yeah.
See, Collin County is outpacing everyone back then. I wonder if that's because of new construction on a lot of those model homes. They'll put them on for 300
they
days or something.
list them ahead of time.
Yeah. So that's weird that was outpaced it so much back then. But yeah, as an average MLS, this is actually the highest we've had back here. Let's see, way back in the day. Yep, January 2015 was the last time as an average MLS we had a higher days on market. It was 69. So that's pretty significant. Almost 10 years. This
so
is the most
January. Look
years.
at January of 24 versus January of 25. What is that?
January 24 average was 60, and so now we're 6. Well, basically
67.
We're not there, but 67.
So we're not too bad. I mean, so my question, we saw a significant shift after the NAR lawsuit, right? And August going into September. And so it's been really tricky the last several months to comp properties, anything past August.
Yeah.
It's been really tricky. But now we're going into the new year. And for instance, this Carrollton home, I'm trying to look at comps and balance it. And I've always got a bullseye on 90 days, but there's not a lot of supportive comps, right, in the last 90 days over there.
Yeah.
And I could probably go out to a mile because that area is pretty significant for the Foxy Jacobs homes and
Yeah.
stuff, and I've seen a couple that have a stronger sales point, a nicer remodel. And so what I'm trying to do is think, can I push this thing, get closer to 450?
Mm.
Um, and I think there's some data there. There's definitely data in first, second quarter of last year. The question is, do we think that there's been enough shift, because the interest rates are actually pretty decent? And so what we had last year is we had the interest rate scare, and then we had the whole NAR thing. And I think the NAR thing really flipped things upside down, and the commission structures flipped things upside down and backwards. And it was just like the buyers just disappeared, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like it was like cockroaches in a dirty house, right? Like you bombed it and you or you turn the lights on and they scatter, right? That's
Right.
basically what it felt like. And anyway, so I'm curious now going into the new year, see what we're going to see right now. Are
Yeah.
we gonna balance out enough to say, hey, okay, our values should be at least a break even on what we were seeing in first, second, third quarter last year, and seeing what demand is? Or are we going to level itself out,
Yeah.
or are we going to be in this kind of downward trend like we were, September, October, November? I don't
Yeah, I
know.
think with the new administration, wanting to make some changes, and we'll see what the first 100 days, if that makes any difference on what the market's doing. I was reading, I don't think I pulled up this article that we'll talk about in the news, but there was an article about how the new builds ended 2024 fairly well, but it's not looking great going into
Yeah.
2025. They have a lot of inventory. They're really trying to throw a lot of incentives, and that doesn't necessarily impact where you're flipping, but when you look at the market as a whole and it's absorbing buyers, and I'm sure there is a trickle down effect of, at some point you go out far enough to where someone is looking to, well, we could go ahead and buy new. We're 15 more minutes north. We'll go buy new or whatever. And then that person's out of the market, and it does trickle down. But overall, I mean, obviously seasonally, we see a dip always in volume and sales. So we'll see how it rebounds.
Look at
The
Let's look at pricing real quick. Let's just try to see if we can look at average
average,
price.
average original list price.
Yeah, let's look at average price or average solds. I don't know if you can look at solds.
Solds, they don't have that on here. They have closed number of closed sales, but they don't have closed price, which actually is that was another article that I looked at. There's a new piece of legislation that they've tried to push it through last time, but the Texas legislation is going into session soon, and they've introduced a bill that would require, when someone buys a house, they have to actually file something with the county or the maybe it's the county appraisal district on their sold amount
And there's a
to
sales price. Go to the first tab left of. There you go.
average sales price. You think that's closed?
Yeah, I think that's closed.
Okay.
And zoom in on that. Let's see. Let's see if we can look at January 24 to January 25 and see. See what actually do the 1 year. Do the 1 year view, and it should show that trend.
So January 23 is the entire MLS was 426.
Okay,
It's been
so we've had
flat.
a
It's
little
gone
bit
down a
of
little
dip.
bit. The average.
That's 2 years. Can you do a 1 year? I
It
guess that
says
is a
1
1
year,
year.
but
I
yeah,
was
here
trying
it
to
is
look
right
at.
here.
I was trying to look at August. Let's see. That's December 23. Then it dips
December
in.
23 to December 24. The average
I guess it doesn't
overall.
show much of a dip. There's a little dip right in the. It might be August. If you go over to the right, that's all 23. So keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right about there is August, and then it drops in September. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Go to the next one. Yep.
Yep.
So
And then
we
it's kind
saw
of,
that, right? We felt that.
yeah.
So that's what I'm kind of wondering. It looks like we're on an upward trend to kind of get back to where we were
Yeah.
maybe in April, June. So go back to the high
Let's
point.
say 482. So
Go back
there's a
to right
482
there.
right there. July.
Go to the left a little bit. where is that? June,
May.
May.
May was the
Okay,
high point.
so May, June, July, which is kind of based
High,
this
the high.
statistically on higher parts of the year.
Yep.
It looks like we trended down and then we started coming back up.
Yeah.
So,
So you look back in 23, you had this high point, same in the middle of the summer, more
yep.
competition. People are
Yeah, so we're
willing to
really
pay a
not
little bit
that
more.
bad. I think, what we felt was the days on market and the properties, you know, the demand, right? Like I said, somebody turned the lights on and everybody scattered,
Yeah.
I mean, we really felt that. And there was a lot of chatter through our real estate offices and things like that where people were panicking and trying to figure out what to do. And even you mentioned a property in Wiley, an open house, a beautiful home, but, it's still on the market, right? And
Yeah.
so,
It's a unique property. I think I'm going to try to do an open house if I put my name out there. So
yeah.
3.6 acres. Maybe I go out and buy. Look, here's the deal. If I go out and I get a buyer that's looking for 3.6 acres, then all of a sudden in the last year, I've sold a 5-acre property and now I'm looking for, like, I'm the acreage guy,
There you go.
like if you're looking for a farm,
Get your cowboy hat on and get
I
your
wear my
boots on.
boots. I always wear my boots. I don't do the howdy y'all stuff like if I was from A&M. But all right, let's get into a little bit of news. Let me share this. So we know this neighborhood. According to the Dallas Morning News,
Yes.
North Texas HOA charged with discrimination for trying to kick out low-income renters and specifically targeting
Ooh.
African American families. Do you know where this
Oh my
is?
gosh. Oh gosh. Wow.
Do you know this?
Oh yeah.
This is right. This is
You know
well.
what?
This is where your house in Aubrey, like the one that sat forever.
Well, and so this is technically Providence, right? That it's talking
Yeah, it's
about,
right next to that.
but it was a talk. And it was talked about with the neighbors next to me on that property in Aubrey were
Mm-hmm.
very, very concerned about, and here's the kicker, what they're discussing, and I don't think this is discriminatory, necessarily, although it happens. But what this is referring to, and yeah, they do say it here, yeah, something about renters who will be paid with government subsidies,
Yeah,
formerly known
someone
as
posted
Section
on
8
their
vouchers.
Facebook pages, hide your kids because Section 8 is on the loose.
Oh gosh.
And another resident called out housing voucher recipients wild
Oh,
animals.
here's the sad thing about that. The sad thing is, I think Section 8
Oh,
vouchers.
God, look at this. On 2 separate occasions, a white supremacist organization protested outside the development, handing out flyers
Oh
that said
my
voucher
gosh.
recipients are bringing, quote, unimaginable violence. They also delivered flyers. This is in a neighborhood
Oh
like
my gosh.
2 minutes from where you flipped the
So
house.
sad.
They delivered
Wow.
flyers to people's home that said, quote, blacks bring crime and violence.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Wow.
So they're suing the HOA, I guess. So did the HOA have knowledge of it maybe and they didn't do anything?
Oh
That's
my gosh.
insane.
Wow.
I hadn't read that
So
far down because
I mean,
I just read like, oh, Providence, the HOA is getting sued. That's
so that
crazy.
house, the neighbors were chattering. Now, they were politically correct. They didn't mention anything about race or anything else, but they mentioned that investors were buying up property in that neighborhood, and they were very concerned that I was going to rent that property out to Section 8. And here's the issue. Section 8 vouchers in that area are very strong. So I think for a 4-bedroom home, they're given like $2,600, $2,800. They mentioned it to me. We'd have to fact check it, but the vouchers typically for Section 8 are higher than sometimes what market rents might be based on demand of what it is and the school districts and things like that. The sad things are, I think, look, I think Section 8 and subsidiary housing is a great tool for people that really need it. I think it's really good to have somebody try to get ahead. I think it's a great program. They pay a portion. They don't get
Hmm.
100%
Right.
typically written off, but they
Yep.
pay maybe 300, $400. Maybe it's more. Maybe it's 1,000 on it. The rent's 2,500, and they have to do their job. And Section 8 does inspections of the property, and so there's a lot of pros and cons. The downside is what happens, and where this gets a bad name is people get a voucher, and then they tell their people, their people, their friends, their family, whoever, come stay with me, and they use that voucher as an issue where they can now get income in, or they bring
Oh, they're
more people into
charging
the
other
home
family
because,
members. Yeah.
yeah, because they're getting this, discounted rent, so then it ends up being, overpopulated, too many people living there. Even if they do an inspection, they typically might know the inspection's happening, or, people are just visiting, or whatever the
Mm.
case might be. And so, you know, a lot of times people take advantage of it. I guess that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say, is that
Yeah.
unfortunately it's not bulletproof to being taken advantage of. And it's one of those things you get you know, somebody gives you something and you want more,
Yeah.
versus, being appreciative for what you're given. And I think what sucks about it is things like this, right? It ruin it for the good people. The good
Right.
people that are
Mhm.
doing what they're supposed to do, the people that are really appreciative of this situation and this kind of program, especially for a place like Aubrey that, schools are good, and houses, I mean, what you're getting into is a newer home
Mhm.
and things like that, versus, being in, South Dallas somewhere, and, Mesquite in a home built in the 60s or something, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It's a part of the reality of just people living near each other, and of course we can't steer and you can't make. But the
yeah,
fact of the matter is, a lot of times, you know, you want to live near people that share your same values and look like you and have culturally the same, stores down the street that everyone's enjoying, and like that can be said for
yeah,
people from all over the world, and people, black and white and Asian. Like we have Koreatown, we've got, we have parts of town like Casa Linda that was more Hispanic, and you just have these parts of town that kind of trend that way. But obviously you can't, you shouldn't hand out flyers on the street that says, if you're not this, go away.
oh,
The ironic thing, not ironic, but I mean, this actually is a part of the California fires. Is one of the conversations is Altadena is a historically minority neighborhood. It's sort of the last, they say it's kind of one of the last bastion of affordability
oh,
in that
wow,
area, and it's really sad that a lot of these houses are being burned down because a lot of social groups are saying, this is going to be the last we see of,
yeah,
that
yeah,
culture. And now we're going to have super affluent, homogenized groups coming in that can spend $3-4 million on this lot and property to rebuild it. And so it goes both ways.
yeah,
It's like you have some folks that are mad because it's being gentrified, and you have some folks being mad because other people are moving in. It's like very sensitive. But I do know that now, how the HOA played into this, I'm not 100% sure, but
I don't know.
allowing people
I
to hand
mean,
out
maybe it's
flyers at the
maybe it's possible some of these people were on the
like
HOA
on the
board,
HOA board or something, or maybe they're sending messages around. But
maybe
holy
because
cow,
the HOA is allowing it, or has allowed it, right,
yeah, that
to
is
happen. So
just insane. So all
this
right,
is this is
let's
wild.
yeah, let's go to the next
It's very sad, but it could explain too why people were. I mean, we struggled with Aubrey, obviously, right? Like I didn't get that right. I mean,
maybe
it
there's
took
just
a
a lot
long
more
time.
going
We
on up
finally
there,
sold
and
it,
yeah, people
but
are
then
just way more upset.
you saw a couple people after me that were like couldn't sell the property either,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like it's become,
I don't
very challenging up there.
very contentious up in Aubrey, that 380 area. There's a lot more going on than we see. It just like, hey, this house is taking a little while to sell.
Yeah.
All right, another article out of the Dallas Morning News: apartment giant Greystar is sued for mishandling dog-centric property in Grapevine. Which, this is a huge developer who hired on a large property management group, Greystar. The thing that's cool about this is, and they're thinking about opening up one of these, I guess, in Richardson. It's a dog, like it's kind of like it says dog centric apartment
Oh my
complex.
gosh. Can you imagine what that
And
smells like?
well, they're saying, so from a property management standpoint, they say that they were actually filing fake work orders that said that they had done the work, but the residents were saying like no one ever came by to fix my plumbing. No one ever
Oh
came by
gosh.
to fix this, but Greystar was billing the property owner saying, yep, we went out, we fixed it, it's done. And so of course that's a huge issue. And so
Yeah.
the owner is suing the management group saying, look, you're ripping me off. You know, my people are unhappy that are living there because the work's not getting done, but you're telling me it's done. You're charging me for it. But going back to the concept here, residents are afforded unlimited access to an on-site doggy daycare, and the complex itself partners with local rescues and shelters to facilitate foster programs. They have dog amenities. They have doggy doors in every apartment.
Oh my
Holy
gosh.
cow.
Oh, that place stinks.
AI-driven technology packages that allow
I
owner
just,
you can
i-
monitor
if
your dogs throughout the day.
I'm sure you and most of our listeners have at one point in time have been to the city pound to adopt an animal, and you know how bad that smells. Like,
Yeah, I don't know that.
I
I
can't
mean, I think
imagine
it's
living with that.
well. I mean, we just turned over your midterm in
Yes.
Richardson, and they had what 5 dogs, which
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
believe you like 5 dogs
I
is
know. I
crazy.
know. I was
Now,
charging
knowing that
for
5
it, and
dogs were there,
I was told very good things when it started of all crate trained and this and this and this and all that. Anyways,
yeah,
it
they
could have
didn't
been
tear it
worse.
up as much as I thought that they might,
No,
but
but we definitely had some dog smell. So the
um,
your efforts and Yuri efforts and the shampoo carpet cleaning guy efforts and then the ozone machine finally did the trick. So
yeah,
we are in much better shape than we were. Now it smells like a new house again.
brand new house. I did mention this. The legislature is going into session. They Representative Cecil Bell introduced House Bill 291 in an attempt to require buyers to disclose home sale prices. They would be required to file a sales price disclosure report with the local appraisal district within 10 days of recording the deed in an attempt to improve accuracy of appraisals. Evidently, something similar was proposed in 2019, but there was an actual civil penalty if you didn't do it. And I think this one is going to be more of a, hey, we're highly encouraging you to do this, but I don't know that there's going to be an actual civil penalty if you don't. So all the other bills that seem to be house centric, a lot of tax bills, kind of capping, one of them right now, you can't get an appraisal that's higher than 10% from the year before. Someone is proposing that they cap that at 2.5%, which I think I don't know how that would work, because in general, we at least go up, and from an appraisal standpoint, 5%. It's kind of like our historic in Dallas, so I don't know how the taxes would keep pace with that, but those are kind of the big ones. They kind of have some minutia about taxes. They're looking to limit foreign buyers, quote unquote, hostile foreign buyers on commercial properties. There's also another bill that's going institutional owned single family homes, which we've talked about this before. He's proposing a stipulating that corporate owners can't own more than 10 single family homes for rent in the state of Texas, which would be a big deal because I'm sure several of them own thousands. So that would be something. I don't know that would go through, but these are a few of the bills that we'll watch to see if they go through the legislation. I will also jump over to one last little thing here. I need to figure out how to do this a little bit more seamlessly, but I will say here, Dallas, evidently the residential construction permits in Dallas have fallen 88%. Wait times have fallen 88%.
Nice.
In the last year, which is really cool. I don't know if it started at I guess if it started at 9 years and went down to 1 year, that's not great. But I'm imagining that this went from, several months to maybe a month or something like that. The commercial days, the commercial is 276 to 189, but they didn't say the residential. But nice that they are speeding up the process of getting residential building permits in Dallas. They actually created a new department in 2024, and they're saying that has really improved things. They went virtual with a lot of their approvals, not making people go specifically like down to Jefferson, which I've spent hours in line down at Jefferson. But in a similar vein, we have talked about the city of Princeton. They had put a 4-month moratorium on building, and they have actually extended that. So the city of Princeton, which is not far from us, it's in Collin County. They were outpacing just what the roads could handle and sewage and all that stuff. And so they said, why don't we hold off for 4 months, and we're not going to give any more residential permits for 4 months. Well, we've come to the end of that. They met again, and they've extended it 6 months. So if at the minimum 10 months of no residential permits in Princeton, which is a fast growing area. I've sold a house in Princeton and a lot of new neighborhoods up there. So really crazy that they're saying, like, we just need to take a breath. we got to get this figured out, which is probably what some of them should have done along 380 a while ago, just saying like, hey, before we do anything else, let's figure this part out, because now it's a mess. Right. And I always thought that, full circle, I thought that 380 was the reason no one wanted to buy up in Aubrey. And now we find out that there's white supremacists handing out flyers on street corners telling people why they shouldn't buy.
Oh,
so,
my gosh.
All right, let's go to our section where we talk about a nice couple homes here in the DFW area. And I will get over to that. Let's see here. Let me get to my matrix. And over in my carts, I have created a cart here for podcast properties. I am going to show you polar opposite homes here. Are you hearing me? Polar opposite homes. Which one do you want to see first? The one that I think that you'll like, or the one that I think you might throw up in your mouth? Now, one of them is 17 million. One of them is 23.5. Okay. One of them was listed yesterday. One of them's 30 days. And the 30-day one made the news of like, hey, this actually might garner the attention of some celebrities and some athletes. I don't know why, but that's that. It popped up. I'm like, okay, let me check it out. But then another big one popped up. So I'll let you choose the one I think you're going to like, or the one I think you might be the worst house you've ever seen.
Let's do worst first.
Okay, worst first. It was listed yesterday for $23.5 million in Dallas on Park Lane, 5100 Park Lane.
Okay.
It is the example of opulence.
Wow.
Front of the house looks cool. I'm game for that, right?
It's all limestone.
Oh man, look at that entrance. You got lions.
The gate and the
anytime you incorporate lions
driveway
into the front decor, we're going somewhere.
Yeah.
Look at the size of those lights out front. I mean, that's like a 6 foot. Holy cow. They used all the gold. They talked to their the metal guy. They talked to their LE and said, look, whatever we can do to get some gold and some scroll steel worked into the banister here. 5100 Park Lane, Dallas. I forgot to say the address, I think, but look at all this. Just gold lights hang from everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
Super ornate molding. What is this style? This isn't like Baroque, is it?
What do you call it? I think this is like
gaudy. I mean, it's like some
French
kind of
colonial, something along those lines.
Louis the 14th chairs. These are the people that care about that.
Early American, maybe. I don't know.
Oh my gosh!
Very French,
I just don't even
colonial. Very ornate. I mean,
very ornate. You got just very stuffy furniture. It's like I don't feel like you could sit.
Here's the funny thing. I can envision either the owner or the designer that did this,
Mhm.
because I've ran into them several times throughout my career of doing design work, and nothing against them, but I can imagine somebody that's in their 70s,
Yeah.
and they're raving about their design and what
Yeah.
they've done. Now, mind you, this is very tastefully designed if you like this style. So
Mm.
not everybody's gonna like my style either. So it's not to say anything bad, but
All right. So, but
I
this is the
have to
type of.
say that I've had tenants before in my homes, and then they show me their work, and I'm like,
Thank
this
you,
is
but
not
no.
this doesn't work.
This is
And
the type of house, and picture 9 here in the library. This is a great example. They put this table out in the middle, and they put some little
hmm
things on it. This table serves no purpose other than,
I think that was designed as an office.
yeah. Well, here's what this table serves. They can tell their friends when they come over, for Christmas dinner, that they traveled to Italy, or they had their
Yes.
designer go to Italy, and they bid on an auction for this,
Yes.
1653 table that was blessed by the, Pope
Yeah, there
of
was
the
some
era.
document signed on it.
Yeah. There's a story behind this table, and it means a lot to them, and their friends that have known them
And
for a while have heard
therefore
that story 15
therefore
times.
the house should sell for $2 million more.
$23.5 million. So yeah, this whole thing is just a little bit much.
Wow.
The one thing I
I
do,
mean, it's for the style. It's tastefully designed. It is very clean. It definitely takes you back to
another era.
it takes you back 100 years or more.
I mean, it is
So
funny to see all this opulence, and then there's a wall. There's like a wall TV up above, like a fireplace.
yeah, and look at the drapes. I mean, the amount of money they
Lord of
spent in
mercy.
drapes.
Yeah,
And
that's a lot of drapes.
wow.
Here's the one cool room I do kind of, hey,
Oh yeah.
they have this, like, they call it their media room.
Yep.
It's not your typical media room. It's just a room that they've sort of turned into that. But they have 5 TVs on the wall. They've got a cool, very cushiony couch, like velvet blue. They've got a wet bar in there. I could
It's
see
got
hanging
cool
out in here,
wallpaper.
a
It's
little
got
bit of
cool
like a
wallpaper.
cigar and some
Yeah.
a tequila with watching some football. So this is the office. So anyway, all right, let's go to house number
Right.
2,
I mean,
the
if you like
polar
that, I
opposite.
was going to say we stayed in a hotel that was like that in Newport, Rhode Island, but that's what we were going for, right? Like you were going for that Victorian feel.
This
So
being said, is okay. Now we're looking
I
at,
like it.
I know you would, 3736 Aviemore Drive, Aviemore, 3736 Aviemore Drive in Fort Worth.
Okay,
This is a mid-century homage, a mod homage, a mid-mod
nice.
homage
Yeah,
in Fort Worth for
look at
17
that
million.
view.
Look at that view. I will be honest with you. I would not want to live in this house. I mean, it's a
No,
pretty house, very pretty house. And it's like architecturally, like, yes, you're going to make the front of some magazines,
yeah.
but what they did, I, I hope you like it.
Oh,
But I
that's cool.
mean, the really cool view, infinity pool looking off. They're kind of elevated, looking down onto this valley.
hmm
That's really pretty. That's great. Um, the house itself, to me, is so much about the design and the architecture that there's just no soul to this house. Like, there's
hmm
just, I can't even imagine living here. It doesn't seem fun. It doesn't
So
seem
it's cold.
family.
You're saying it's cold.
Yeah, but it, like, usually I think modern, of sort of like the
hmm
glassy polished modern. This, I think some mid-century stuff has some family and soul to it. This one just,
hmm
I don't think it does. There's, like, here, like, a good example. The scale of this house is not mid-century because it's just so huge. But they've
Right.
they've had to do these, like, long clean line cabinets, long clean line tables and sofas to fill the space. But then
hmm
you just have this, like, I don't know. It's like this overabundance of just monochromatic look, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Look at the kitchen. Like, it
Yeah.
looks like a modern take, a high end take on Formica.
Well, to some defense, the staging could have done a better job. Like they could have thrown a pop of green and color, and it definitely needs some color,
And
in
the
the
ovens are right
staging.
behind chairs. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's kind of a weird. That's kind of tight the way that design is.
Here's
But
your
I mean, like,
induction.
there's nothing on the counter, so they could have put some,
Something.
some plants, some greenery, some
Some
pops of
book.
color,
I
something. I
I
mean,
did recognize one piece of art in this house, and I was proud of
yeah,
myself that I knew the artist. But so yeah, this is the little hideaway office, but maybe behind.
I do. So here's from an architectural design. Their focus is the outside, right?
Yes.
Their focus is the views. Their focus is, like a treetop view.
Yep.
You're high enough elevation. I don't know if you can see downtown Fort Worth, but you're at a high enough elevation where
This is the
everything is
master.
elevated, and you've got, wide open windows. It looks like they've got retractable blinds that are up in the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Master's cool. It is definitely lends itself more modern than the mid-century tones, although there are pieces to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like you said, it's a little cold, even with the warm tones of wood and things like that. And I think that just comes down to lack of staging. I think
Mm-hmm.
if they would have staged this, where there are some rooms staged, so I can't tell if that's virtually staged or if that's
I
true
think it's
staged.
real. I think it's well. I may be wrong, but I don't know, man. Look at the shadows under that chair.
Yeah,
Like
but they've
I
gotten
mean, if
pretty
that's
good on
virtual
that now.
staging, that's pretty insane. Um, I mean, they do have a Porsche out front. They did get the trash cans. I mean, so which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that
But
might be a real picture.
yeah. Okay, so this painting here or this picture, David Yarrow, he was is a famous photographer. He actually had
Oh wow,
he
look
had a
at you.
spot down in a hotel, maybe the Stadler, where he had his art. It's famous black and white art, and then they have his book right here, David Yarrow.
Okay,
Um, so
very
I
cool.
did recognize that. Yeah, I'm cultured enough to know a David Yarrow when I see one.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, I don't know, man. I
Oh,
this
what
is
is that?
17.
Is that a
What?
totally different kitchen?
No, this
Oh,
is like
wet
their wet
bar.
bar behind like their media room or whatever.
Wet bar and kitchen. It says game room, island, wet bar, kitchen.
But look, I mean, I that's cool.
Yeah,
Uh, I haven't seen one TV. Or here's a TV in like tucked back in an office.
that's weird.
And not that TV's everything, but like if you're gonna live here, like here's a little
It's
workout
a
room
cool
with one
gym. Yeah,
Peloton and a sauna.
yeah.
Now look at this mechanical
Holy
room.
cow! Look at
That's a
that.
mechanical room. I mean, that's like that's a space. It looks
Wow.
like the
I wonder if they.
the bowels of a
You have
cruise
to read
ship.
through the description and see if they've got geothermal. That looks like a geothermal type of setup
It's pretty cool.
with all the copper lines and
It's bad when
everything.
it's
Look
bad
at
when the
the
mechanical
electrical
room is the most
panels.
interesting thing happening.
Look at the number of electrical panels, and then your whole home automation system over there in the left tower right there.
Yep.
But the
hmm This
holy
looks like
smokes!
security or something over here. Or, yeah, you got all sorts of
But I mean, that whole
hot
black
water. Look at
tower
that
right
hot water
there is
tank.
all that's all like audio and
Yeah,
you know everything for the
this
whole
is all your
house.
audio, security, sound. Look at that. Look, it was like a 90. What is that?
I think that's a
900-gallon hot water tank or something.
well, the tankless water heaters are up on the right side, the white boxes.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder if
Like
that's a
a backup.
geothermal. I
Hmm.
think that's a geothermal AC
Okay.
system.
Well, when the mechanical room is the thing you are most interested about. Now, look, this
Yeah,
view, this is a magazine view. This will be on
yeah,
Architectural
for
Digest.
sure.
Like that's why they built this house. But to spend $17 million, I don't know. I know like from the view, it's
I
beautiful.
think
It's great.
it just shame on the agent because they just did not. They didn't promote staging very well. Like somebody's definitely moved out of this home. So if they would have shot it with somebody living in it, or is it a new build? Is this a new build?
That's a good
How
question.
old is this house?
Yeah, it's brand
2024.
new.
Ah,
Brand new.
that's the issue. So nobody's moved into it yet. So they staged it, but they half-ass staged it. If they would have hired, a very talented stager, there's a few of them around town right now, um, to go in there and stage this right with artwork and all kinds of things throughout, and give it some pops of color and soften it up a little bit, then it would have felt a lot more warm. But
Yeah.
the architectural pieces of it, they spent a lot of money in
Yep.
like all that wood on the exterior and the
hmm
interior and the the stamped concrete walls and a lot of cool stuff. But
But let's say they're the same price.
Mm-hmm.
You're buying the Fort Worth house over opulent.
Yes. Yeah.
You can
For
figure
me.
out how to stage Fort Worth house.
For me, yes. And I love the view. I mean, if you're going to have a home like that, like some of the homes I designed with all the windows and the cool stuff, right? Like that was the downfall. Like they didn't have views, right? I mean, they're really cool homes within a shell, but I mean, you're staring out to a fence versus, being able to stare out to either, a landscape like that. It's high enough elevation, you might catch views of Fort Worth or,
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you have
backing up
dogs and
to
a
a
family,
lake, backing up to a lake or out to
that
an
would be
ocean
cool.
would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah. If you had a dog and a family, though, the Baroque 1600, like there's nothing that looks out of place there just because it's all camo. It's just everything. You could have it not be perfect and you wouldn't even know the difference. There's just so much stuff around. You could definitely have a little dog toy laying around. If you're in the modern house, one thing's out of place. You know it.
Like a Turner and Hooch French Bordeaux loose in that house, in that Victorian house, and what they would
Completely
the fun they would have with those drapes and the couches, would be cool to see.
Well, good deal. All right. Well, that is this week. Find us on social, Instagram and Facebook. Tavis Westbrook Designs, Tavis Westbrook, Ashton, Hines, Dallas Real Estate Guy. Find us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Spotify. Share us with a friend. We haven't grown in listenership a little bit. We've kind of flatlined a little bit. So, if you think about us this week, say Merry Christmas. I'm going to send this to a friend and have them listen to an episode. So we would love that, and we would love you for it. So until next time, have a great day.
See ya.